Brian Moran, founder of Government CIO. Welcome to Government CIO Magazine.
Hi, this is Olivia Ung with Government CIO Magazine. Today we'll be speaking with Small Business Administration HUBZone Director, Mariana Pardo.
The greatest achievement in our office has been the education that we have provided to the transparency, the external parties. And when I mean external parties, I mean all stakeholders, from the small business that is considering becoming HUBZone certified or has heard about it, is curious about it, to the business that has been certified for 10 years. To that counselor that is advising small businesses, whether they're in a procurement technical assistance center or a small business development center, the district offices. We wanted to make sure that individuals understand the program, but going a little bit beyond, because in this program, the companies have to become analysts. They have to become an SBA analyst so that they can self-evaluate their compliance. It's very, very easy in this program, because it has so many nuances to it, for a company to fall out of compliance unbeknownst to them if they don't understand the program. So if they understand it very well, then they can actually develop strategies to maintain compliance and be certified for many, many, many years. The longer a company is certified, the more benefits, contracting benefits that are available, that they can tap into, and obviously the more benefits to the community, since this is a tool for economic development of the poorest areas of the country. It ties into what we were just talking about. Usually what I see from businesses is they become, the first thing that perks their interest is a decreased competition pool. So they're a small business, they've been in the federal contracting arena for a while, but whenever they bid on small business set-asides, they have hundreds of business perhaps that they're competing against. And they begin to look at the HUBZone certification as a way of reducing. So for example, we right now have about 4,700 HUBZone certified firms in the portfolio versus hundreds of thousands small businesses that are without that certification. So that's the first thing that piques their interest. But really what tips them over the threshold in becoming certified is a desire to give back to the community. That's what I see in the most successful. If I would say a best practice is that company that looks at this as a business opportunity, obviously, but then looks at, you know what, I know people that live in these areas. I have lived in these areas, and I've moved away, and now I want to come back. How can I provide back? And usually what I hear from companies is that whenever they go to a job fair to recruit for employees, they first talk about the HUBZone mission, the HUBZone program mission, the mission of providing employment opportunities and revitalization opportunities to the most distressed areas of the country. Then they start talking about how mission aligns to theirs and what they're doing. By doing that, they educate the prospective employee, and that employee buys into that. So they either consider moving into a HUBZone, or they are actually even more eager to help in that overall revitalization. So I see companies, actually this type of companies that buy into the mission and incorporate it are the ones that usually keep the residency requirement of employees as way, way above the minimum. The minimum residency requirement is 35%. And these companies keep it at 40, 50, 60, even more. So that's a best practice, obviously. If you keep it right at that minimum 35%, all it takes is for one employee to sometimes move across the street. And then the company is at 33% and they're not compliant. So yeah. I would say that it is the designations, the geographical designations. Sometimes people, some of the myths are the areas keep on changing all the time, so it's very hard to keep track. And that is not quite accurate. Because it's not like I'm going to go to sleep tonight and tomorrow I'm going to wake up and poof, an area disappeared. We're talking about areas that have been disadvantaged for generations. We're not talking about a dip in the economy that caused an area to become a hub zone. These are extremely poor areas, areas that sometimes the infrastructure may not be there, to support the type of business sometimes that we're looking into. So some areas, even though they're designated as hub zones, may not be an area where a business is going to yet invest capital in it because the infrastructure is not quite there. So what we have in our website, and that's one of the things what I was saying about the transparency, the education, we have a lot of information about the designations. We have a mini primer. So if people have 10, 15 minutes to just go to some of the mini primers that explain that, because understanding how the geographical designations function allows the company then, if I'm a company, it allows me to then develop that strategy and plan for that, because I'm going to know at least 3 years ahead when that area is going to expire. So I can make plans. It may be affecting my employee residency, it may be affecting my principal office, but the fact that that area is expiring 3 years from now doesn't mean that I'm going to first have to move. We don't want companies to move. That would defeat the program. The program is one where I invest in this area, I establish roots, I provide employment, hopefully via my contribution and along the way with others programs, to revitalize a particular area, that area will no longer be hub zone. That's the goal. But the goal is not for me to then pick up and go. That is totally unrealistic from a business perspective and from an economic perspective. But if a company plans well, and that's another best practice, I've seen companies that plan very well years ahead. When you are located in an area, you know when things are beginning to change, to the positive or to the negative. And when companies see that things may be changing to the positive, and eventually maybe 5, 10 years, that area may no longer be hub zone, they start making plans as to, you know what, we have a lot of business out of this other area. We're doing a lot of stuff. Let's open another office there and in a hub zone. And let's start, that's another location. And then over time, if they have more employees working from that location versus the one that eventually may lose it, they will maintain certification. So there is a lot of strategies by understanding how the geographical designations operate and what triggers these updates. The companies can be better positioned to maintain certification. Well, what is required, right, gets done. So the regulations, actually, there's two things. The regulations require for SBA to provide a decision within 15 days. There is no whenever practicable language there. So there's no wiggle room unless we request an extension from the contracting officer. The other aspect is that there is a contract at stake. This is when a company, obviously, that we have you and I, for example, bid on a contract, and then I'm the apparent successor for you're challenging my status. You believe that I may not be meeting the residency requirement or the principal office. Those are the most common reasons for protest. But obviously, there is this federal agency that needs the product or the services that we both bid to provide. So SBA and the company and the agency has a vested interest to resolve this issue as quickly as possible. So most of our decisions are actually made within 15 days. What is important to note is obviously it's a team effort. So the efficiency is not only from us, it's the company. The company we find the HUBZone companies to be very efficient in giving us the information, because what transpires is obviously we need to communicate with the company and say, provide us all the supporting documentation. And they do that within 3 days. Sometimes they request 5 days. And thanks to them, then we come over and we need probably about 7 to 10 days sometimes to assemble levels, sometimes to go back, sometimes we conduct site visits. So it's actually a team effort of the company that is responding to the allegation and from us. If a firm is considering doing work with the federal government, let's say that they've been doing mostly commercial, and they would like to branch out into the federal government, obviously talking with other companies that have been there is very, very useful because there is an extra overhead that requires. So some planning ahead of time as to, okay, what are the oversight things that I'm going to have to be conscientious about that will add a little bit to my overhead. But I would say that really looking at two databases in particular, at least to start with some databases. One is the Federal Procurement System, database system, Federal Procurement Database System, which is fpds.gov. That is public. A company can actually create their own account and run reports, ad hoc reports, or actually save reports. And they can actually take a look at what has been bought. So it's historical, which actually is very valuable because then you know, all right, my target is, let's say, the Department of Agriculture, and I want to provide IT services. Let's see what the Department of Agriculture has bought under this particular names or keywords, and how much they paid for it is right there, the contracts, how much they paid. When are they going to be ending? Because it'll tell you when it was signed, when it's ending, and who the contact person is. Now, getting to that contact is always a challenge. As we know as business owners, you knock on many, many doors, and sometimes you don't get a response, or you get a response, but they're not quite the person you needed to talk to. So it's a lot of legwork. But obviously starting to what is being bought already and how much they're paying for it so that you have an idea of the pricing. Then the other database is the the buying federal FBO, Federal Business Opportunities, or something like that, .gov. But if you do an internet search for federal buying opportunities, just make sure that there is a .gov at the end. There's a lot of .com, .net, and those are more the commercial. But try to go into the Gov sites. They may not be as pretty and as friendly sometimes, but they're usually the most accurate. So when you go there, actually that's the Help Wanted. The Help Wanted is a good way to see what is out there now, but it may be a little bit too late if you haven't yet marketed. However, I would not discourage a firm from actually bidding on this. Now, depending on the size of the firm, obviously, a firm will know if they can bite this type of contract. Some of them may be a little bit too large for them. So if I'm a firm, let's say there is 3 of us, going as a prime may be a little bit too much for me at the time. I can really fold if I get a contract that is too big. It could put me out of business. So I have to be very, very careful. So there's some alternatives for me. I can go into the dynamic small business search. If the viewer wants to explore that particular database, it's in our frequently asked questions in the website, in the HUBZone website. And it's actually, I believe, is the second question right there. Where can I find HUBZone certified firms? And there is a link to the dynamic small business search. And in there, I can find HUBZone firms that perhaps I could joint venture with. If I joint venture with one or more HUBZone firms, we can bid on a HUBZone set-aside. Now, if I joint venture with another firm that is not HUBZone, I cannot bid as a HUBZone joint venture on a HUBZone set-aside. So that's important, and all that information is on the web. So those are the 3 items that I would recommend a firm to do that are beginning a lot of research at the beginning. Then, of course, the last one is each federal office has small business utilization. They have different names, but if you look for small business utilization in an internet search for the agency that you're interested, then you can actually go there. That's another outfit that you can present your capabilities, starts talking about, okay, what is coming up? Because you want to have that forecast. You want to know, how can I prepare myself into positioning myself to throw my hat in. Subcontracting is the last one that I would mention. If I do not want to form, or it's just not the right time for me to form a joint venture with other HUBZone firms, perhaps subcontracting with a prime that has obtained a contract. Primes, large companies, do have to meet HUBZone requirements. So that is another avenue also.